Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you send us and really pull out the key insights for you. Today we're getting into a text that's generated quite a bit of buzz, the divine operating system, how God wired us to function like him by Enger, Femi Aid. And the mission for this deep dive is to explore this really intriguing analogy the author uses, comparing us, human beings, to digital devices and God's spirit, well, to the operating system that makes them run. I mean, think about it, your phone, your laptop, even your smart TV, right? They all need that OS. Without it, they're just, well, fancy bricks, pretty hardware, totally useless. What if, and this is the core question here, what if that same principle applies to us?
It's fascinating, isn't it, how the author takes this very modern, very relatable idea and uses it to look at these ancient spiritual concepts and texts. The central idea is that God didn't just, form humanity. He breathed into him. And that breath, according to the book, wasn't just air. It was his spirit. His operating system, you could say. That's what activated mankind. And it links straight to Genesis 2.7, where it says he breathed life into Adam and the man became a living person. It really puts a different spin on that.
Okay, so that breath, the spirit as the OS,
Yeah.
that's the foundation. Let's unpack that a bit more. The source basically says created in God's image equals installed with his operating system. But it's careful to clarify, right? It's not about looking like God physically.
Exactly, because God is spirit, as John 4.24 notes. So it can't be physical resemblance. Instead, the author argues, being made in his image means being wired with his spirit, his nature, his essence, essentially installed with his OS from the very beginning.
So our spirit then isn't just like one component among others, it's the core processor.
That's the concept. It's presented as absolutely critical. The source emphasizes that your spirit runs everything. Your soul, which, includes your mind, your emotions, your will, and your body, too. The analogy used is pretty clear. Just as no app works without the OS, no life truly works without the Spirit of God.
Wow. So if your mind feels chaotic or your emotions are all over the place, maybe it's an OS issue.
That's what the author suggests we should consider. Are the apps glitching because the underlying OS isn't running properly or isn't the right one?
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, I think, for everyone listening. The source brings in Acts 17.28. In him we live and move and have our being. And also 1 Corinthians 6.16, he who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him. So this suggests the real you isn't just your body or even your thoughts.
Right. It's your spirit, fundamentally synced or designed to be synced with God's spirit. It's like a seamless integration. And Jesus' words in John 6.63, the words I speak to you are spirit and life, seem to really hammer this home. It's saying the spiritual connection, this OS, is foundational to our actual vitality.
Okay, but even the best tech needs updates, right? We all know that feeling. Your phone starts lagging, apps crash, things just stop working smoothly if you don't install those updates. And the book argues it's exactly the same for our spirit.
Precisely. Without those regular updates, performance degrades, things can lag, crash, or just stop functioning as intended.
So the crucial question then is, how do we get these spiritual updates? What does the book say?
Yeah, the text lays out some clear methods, framing them as ways to keep functioning as God designed us to. Walking in purpose, hearing his voice, resisting sin, fulfilling your destiny, all dependent on staying updated.
Okay, what are some of these update methods?
Well, there's prayer, which is framed as direct communication with the Creator, your link to the main server, sort of.
Makes sense, like checking for updates.
Then Bible study described as installing truth into your spiritual memory, like downloading essential data or patches.
Okay.
Fasting is presented interestingly, too, as rebooting your system for clarity and power, clearing out the clutter.
A system reboot, I like that.
There's also worship and gospel music, staying connected to heaven's frequency, like tuning into the right signal. Holy Communion is seen as reaffirming your covenant identity, kind of like re-authenticating your system.
Right.
And importantly, fellowship, syncing with others who run on the same OS, shared processing, mutual support, all presented as essential maintenance.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? These aren't just rituals, they're functional necessities for the system.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the author brings in Psalm 139.1 Phi. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. It underlines that you're not some accident. You're custom designed by the master engineer. Spirit, soul, body, all meant to work in harmony, but...
But only when the Spirit of God is in charge, running the show.
Exactly, when that original OS is active and updated.
So what does this mean practically, especially for, say, younger generations or really anyone navigating today's world? The source suggests a lot of people are struggling because they're trying to function on the wrong operating systems.
Yeah, things like culture, comparison, fear, anxiety, maybe a broken sense of identity.
It's like trying to run iOS apps on an Android phone, as the book puts it. It just causes conflicts, errors.
It just doesn't work properly. You were made for divine software, the author contends. Without it, you might, get by, survive, but you won't truly thrive as intended. Constant bugs and crashes.
So let's flip that. What happens when you do activate God's Spirit, when you run on the intended OS?
Well, the book highlights several key outcomes. First, you start discovering your true identity, separate from all the external noise. You receive a sense of purpose, real direction. You begin to walk in peace and a kind of spiritual power.
And it affects others too.
Yes, you start to naturally impact others, drawing them towards God simply by functioning as you were designed. It's about living out your full potential.
But there's a step before that, right? If sin corrupted the original system, how do we get this OS reinstalled? What's a fix?
The source calls the gospel message the installation key. It frames sin as the virus or corruption that crashed our original system. But the cross, Jesus' work, is presented as the ultimate system restore. A complete reset.
A factory reset, essentially.
Pretty much. Wiping the corruption and allowing for a clean install. All you need to do, it says, is believe in Jesus, receive his Spirit.
And then stay updated. Keep maintaining the system.
Exactly. Stay updated and synced. It's about getting back to the original design specs.
It really drives home the point. You weren't made just to drift. You were designed, installed, and called by God to live with purpose, power, and spiritual awareness. Like Romans 8.13 says, as many as are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God, running on his OS. So we've taken a deep dive today into this concept of the divine operating system. We've explored how we might be wired with God's Spirit as our core OS, the need for those spiritual updates, and the gospel is that crucial installation key. It really is a powerful lens to rethink identity and purpose.
It definitely is. And it leaves us with a pretty important question for you listening. If our lives function like a system, what are maybe some of those subtle bugs or crashes you notice in your own life? Things that might suggest you're trying to run on a different OS, something less compatible than what you were designed for.
That's a good point. Where are the friction points?
And maybe, just maybe, what could it look like this week to consciously try implementing even one of those spiritual updates we talked about? Just one small act of system maintenance.
That's a fantastic thought to leave you with. Really practical. We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights, maybe some new ways to think about how you are fearfully and wonderfully wired. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.